Right after my C-section, I texted, "Please, I can't lift him. Just need a little help." My mom, Susan, responded, "We're too busy. Try your neighbor." I just stared at the message until my eyes burned. 3 weeks later, still barely able to walk, I woke up to 53 missed calls and a message from my sister. "Olivia, we're in trouble. Send $3,000 now." I just replied with, "Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family? Let me know your story down in the comments." It wasn't always this clear. Before that text message, my life was blurry. I was Emily, the 32-year-old graphic designer, but mostly, I was just the fixer. I was the one who managed the family's emotional and financial crises while living in my own carefully budgeted world. I didn't just feel like the fixer. I was explicitly the fixer. I remember when my sister, Olivia, decided she was going to be an influencer. She needed a personal branding masterclass that cost $2,000. She didn't have a job. She insisted building her brand was her job, so she came to me. "It's an investment. She'd said. "It'll pay for itself." I paid for it. She never mentioned it again. And my father, Michael, he's a day trader, which is just a nice way of saying he gambles away his pension. 3 years ago, he wanted a new car he couldn't afford. He needed a cosigner, just for the paperwork. "Emily," he promised, "I'll handle every payment." For the first 6 months, I got late payment notifications. I ended up covering 3 of them just to protect my own credit. The credit I'd painstakingly built. Even my mom, Susan, she's a real estate agent, obsessed with appearances. She'd call me, crying. After every failed open house in our overpriced Austin suburb, no one appreciates quality. "Emily," she'd sniffle, and I'd sit there for an hour. My own design deadlines, piling up, listening to her complain about how undervalued she was. I was her unpaid therapist. I did it all. I paid the bills. I managed the meltdowns. I absorbed the tension. And I think I kept doing it because I held onto this one stupid, secret belief. I thought that if I just fixed enough, if I gave enough, if I was reliable enough, then, one day, when I really needed them, when it was my turn to be the one who was broken, they would finally show up for me. My C-section was the first time in my entire life I had ever truly needed them. It was the first time I couldn't fix something on my own. And that was the test. The one test they all failed. The pain from the C-section wasn't just pain. It felt structural, like a piano wire had been tightened just beneath my skin. And any movement sitting up, breathing, reaching would snap it. My son was crying. He'd been crying for almost an hour, lying in his bassinet just a few feet away from my bed. And I couldn't get to him. I tried. I remember trying to hook the edge of the bassinet with a spare blanket to pull it closer. But the angle was wrong, and the pain shot up my abdomen. And I just failed. I ended up crying right along with him. Tasting the salt and the failure, that's when I sent the text. My hands were shaking. I typed out, "Please. I can't lift him. Just need a little help." I sent it to my mom, Susan. I stared at the screen. I was waiting for the "on my way." I was waiting for the "of course. Be there in 10. I was waiting for some basic, biological maternal instinct to kick in. 3 minutes later, my phone lit up. "We're too busy. Try your neighbor. I read it twice, 3 times, and right then, something inside me didn't just break. It settled. It's strange. I expected to feel rage or to cry harder, but I didn't. What I felt was this cold, sudden, quiet clarity. It was like a thick fog. I'd been living in my whole life just evaporated in an instant. It was the final straw. But it wasn't a loud crack. It was the click of a lock falling into place. In that 1 second, I saw everything. I saw the $2,000 for Olivia's masterclass. I saw my father's car payments. I saw the endless, one-sided therapy sessions with my mother. I saw it all as a transaction. And I realized their love was entirely conditional. The condition was that I had to be the strong one. I had to be the giver. The moment I became the one in need, the moment I was the one bleeding and broken and asking for a simple act of care, I wasn't just an inconvenience. I was a bad investment. The string didn't just break. I let it go. My son was still crying. The clarity didn't fix the immediate problem. I was alone. Truly. Completely alone. Which meant I had to solve this myself. So I did. I scrolled to the only other number I could think of. Mark. The neighbor. The carpenter. The one who was always quiet. Always covered in sawdust. The one I'd only ever nodded to. I didn't even know if he was home. I typed, "I'm so sorry. This is your neighbor. Emily. I just had surgery and I can't get to my baby. I don't know who else to call." 10 minutes later, I heard a soft knock, and the door creaked open. Mark didn't say much. He didn't ask questions or look horrified. He just walked in, saw the situation, and his entire focus shifted to my son. He lifted him gently, checked his diaper, and handed him to me, helping me sit up with a pillow. Then, while I tried to nurse, he just started fixing things. He saw the stack of takeout boxes and quietly took them to the trash. He saw the overflowing sink and just washed the dishes. He warmed a bottle of formula for backup. Without being asked, he was quiet. His presence was calm. He wasn't trying to fix me. He was just helping. When he left an hour later, the kitchen was clean. My son was asleep, and I was just sitting there, staring at the door. The kindness of that near stranger was so practical, so real. It made my own family's love feel like a ghost, like something I'd just imagined all along. The silence from my family was absolute. No follow-up text. No. Are you okay? Nothing. It was like I'd never asked. I just focused on healing. On my son. My world shrunk down to that little apartment, to the 4-hour feeding cycles, to the sharp pain in my abdomen. Mark started stopping by more. Not in a pushy way. He'd just appear for 10 minutes. Holding a coffee for me or a bag of groceries, he claimed he'd accidentally overbought. He was a carpenter. And one night, he just assembled the new bookshelf that had been sitting in a box for a month. He never stayed long. He just fixed what was broken and left. His presence was quiet, steady, and safe. Then, 3 weeks after my C-section, I woke up to my phone buzzing like it was on fire. It wouldn't stop. I grabbed it. 53 missed calls. Most were from my sister, Olivia, a few from my mom, a couple from my dad, which was rare. Then came the text from Olivia. "We're in trouble. Send $3,000 now." Just like that. No. Hi. How are you? No. Sorry we abandoned you. while you were recovering from major surgery. No, how's your son? Just a demand. $3,000. Now, I looked at the text. I looked over at my son, sleeping in the bassinet that Mark had helped me move next to my bed. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel anything at all. Just that cold. Clear. Final click. I typed back the only words that made sense. The words my mother had given me. Try your neighbor. Then I turned my phone off. I didn't just silence it. I powered it completely down, and I left it off for 3 straight days. In that silence, everything came into focus. I thought about a conversation I'd had with my cousin, Sarah. Months ago, she was the only one who saw it. She'd told me once, "Emily, you have to be careful. You're not their daughter. You're their emergency fund." I'd been offended then. Now, I saw the truth. This was the scapegoat system. I was the one who existed to absorb the family's debts, their anxieties, their failures. I was the financial scapegoat for my father's bad investments, the emotional scapegoat for my mother's narcissism, and the professional scapegoat for my sister's laziness. I existed to make them look good, to keep their perfect Austin suburb facade intact, as long as I was the strong one, the one who gave and never asked. The system worked. The moment I needed something, the moment I was the one in crisis, I wasn't just useless. I was a threat to the system. I wasn't a person to them. I was a resource. And they were furious that their resource had just talked back. When I finally turned my phone back on, I expected chaos. I expected voicemails, more texts, maybe even them showing up at my door. I got silence. My reply had stunned them. I ignored the chain of angry, confused messages. I didn't even read them. I just started clearing out my inbox, and that's when I saw it. An email from a name I didn't recognize. A law firm. The subject line was, "Probate Matter, Estate of Annan." I opened it. It was formal, brief. It said my name had come up in a probate discussion for my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, the one my mother, Susan, always described as difficult and cold, the one I hadn't seen since I was 12. I called the number. The lawyer was kind. He explained that my grandfather had passed away 6 months ago, and he had left me everything. It wasn't a fortune. It was a small, run-down farm in the Texas Hill Country, about 3 hours away, a place he'd kept even after he moved away. He had left it all to me. Not my mother. Me. I hung up the phone, completely numb. My mother hadn't just ignored my text. She had actively hidden the fact that her own father had died and that I was an heiress. They weren't just neglectful. They were deceptive. I kept the farm a secret. It was my own quiet, cold piece of knowledge. I started the legal paperwork. All of it sent to a new P.O. box. But the silence from my family finally broke. My phone rang. It was my mother, Susan. I picked up. I wanted to hear what a lie sounded like. Her voice was sweet, sickly sweet. "Emily, honey, I was just calling to, check on you. How's the baby?" It was the first time she'd asked. I said, "He's fine." "Oh, good, good." A fake, brittle pause. "Listen, about that text. Olivia was just panicking. You know how dramatic she gets. She shouldn't have been so abrupt." I waited. "But She continued. The truth is, we are in a bit of a tight spot. Your father and I. We had a small house flipping deal. Just a little investment. The market it dipped unexpectedly. It wasn't anyone's fault. I pictured my father, Michael, glued to a stock ticker, convinced he was a genius. We just need a little buffer, Susan said. That $3,000 Olivia mentioned. It would just be to cover the lien. It would be terrible for my reputation as an agent, if that got out. Just until we get back on our feet. She made it sound like she was asking to borrow a cup of sugar. I held the phone, looked at my son sleeping. I thought about Mark, who had just helped me install a new, safer car seat, without me even asking. No, I said. The silence on the other end was heavy. What do you mean? No, she stammered. I mean, I can't. I'm not in a position to help. Emily. Her voice suddenly turned cold. All the fake sugar gone. Don't be dramatic. We're your family. I can't help. I said again. And I hung up. That's when the real war started. I don't know how they found out about the farm. Maybe public records. Maybe a distant relative. But they found out, and the tone of the texts changed instantly. The first was from Olivia. Oh my God, I heard about Grandpa's farm. I've always dreamed of opening a little boutique. That place would be perfect. It's like destiny. Right, we should talk. I have so many ideas. I stared at the message. Olivia's ideas were just new. More creative ways to get to my wallet. She hadn't worked a day in her life. But now, she was a small business visionary. Then came my mother's text. The real one. Emily, I don't know who you think you are. Your father and I. We could lose the house. This failed deal is bigger than we thought. Are you really going to sit on that property, while your own parents end up on the street, after everything we've done for you? And that's when I saw it. They weren't sad that they'd lost me. They weren't grieving a broken relationship. They were panicking because they had lost control of me. I wasn't a daughter, I was a safety net. And they had just discovered I was no longer going to catch their fall. No, it was worse than that. They were panicking because I suddenly had assets. I had gone from being their ATM, which had a daily limit, to being a bank, and they were furious that they couldn't find the key. That thought, it reminded me of something. That old joint account, the one my dad, Michael, had me open with him years ago. Just for emergencies. I'd forgotten about it. I'd left maybe $1,000 in it. My hands were cold as I logged into my bank. I found the account, and I saw it. A pending withdrawal request. Initiated 2 days ago. By Michael, for the entire balance. He had tried to drain it. Quietly, after I said no to my mother. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just acted. I transferred the entire balance, every last cent, into my own private account, the one he couldn't see, and then I clicked the button Close Account. A pop-up asked, "Are you sure?" I clicked Confirm. The door wasn't just closed, it was locked, and I was the only one with the key. The final confrontation didn't happen over the phone. My father, Michael, just showed up. I heard the knock and my stomach dropped. I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there. Waiting, I held my son, his head resting on my shoulder, and opened the door. He didn't look at the baby. He didn't say hello. He just said, "I need to talk to you about the farm." I stepped outside, pulling the door closed behind me. I looked at this man who was my father, but who felt like a stranger. "There's nothing to talk about," I said. My voice wasn't loud or angry. It was just done. He stared at me, like he didn't recognize me. I wasn't Emily, his fixer, his emergency fund. I was just a woman holding a boundary like a brick wall. "Emily?" He started doubtfully, but his voice cracked. He had no leverage. He had never learned how to talk to me as a daughter, only as a resource. And the resource was gone. He just deflated. He turned, walked away, and drove off. That was the last time I ever spoke to him. A few days later, I had to see it. The farm. I packed up my son and drove the 3 hours into the Texas Hill Country. When I pulled up, it was exactly as described. Run down. The paint was peeling. The porch sagged. But the bones were solid. It didn't feel haunted. It felt I've forgotten. And I could work with forgotten. The will had mentioned one other thing. A locked toolbox in the old barn. Left for me. I found it under a dusty tarp and opened it. I expected tools. Or old deeds. It was journals. Dozens of old, leather-bound journals. In my grandfather's handwriting, I sat on the dusty floor of that barn, my son sleeping in his carrier, and I started to read, and I finally understood. These weren't farm ledgers. They were about my mother, Susan. He wrote about her as a teenager, how she could charm a bird from a tree, but how she confused kindness with weakness. He wrote about her borrowing money, about her lies, about how she'd use friends and then discard them, all while maintaining an image of perfect innocence. It wasn't a new tragedy. It was a 40-year-old pattern. The will wasn't an accident. It was a warning. He hadn't left me the farm to spite my mother. He'd left it to me because he knew I was the only one who had survived her. He saw her for exactly who she was. And in this final act, he was telling me that he saw me, too. The inheritance wasn't just land. It was confirmation. The farm is home now. It's been 8 months. The porch no longer sags. The windows are clear. My phone is quiet. They all just stopped. After that day with my father, the silence from their end became permanent, and I just let it be. Today, there's noise here, but it's a different kind. It's the steady, rhythmic sound of a hammer. That's Mark. He's patching the last section of the roof. My cousin Sarah is here, too. She drove up from Austin, not with complaints or demands, but with a small lemon tree in the back of her car. And I'm in the old, overgrown garden. It was choked with weeds, strangling everything. I've spent weeks clearing them out. And today, I'm finally planting new seeds. I look at them. I look at my son, napping on a blanket in the shade. And I finally understand. For 32 years, I thought family was this thing you were stuck with, an obligation, a debt you were born into and had to keep paying, even when it bankrupted you. I was wrong. Family isn't just blood. Family is a choice. It's the person who shows up with a hammer when your roof is leaking. It's the person who drives 3 hours with a lemon tree just to bring you a little life. It's the people who build with you. My old family saw me as a resource, a fixer, a spare wallet. My new one, they just see me. I plunged the little trowel into the rich, dark earth, making a place for something new to grow. Do you believe we can build a family stronger than blood? Let me know your thoughts. And don't forget to like and subscribe if this story touched you.